Welcome back to Disney Finding Evolution, the storyline which analyzes the history of Neo-Disney. I'm AJ, and this video will be discussing the rise of Neo-Disney's first few successes. Last time, I discussed the Disney Princess Genocide and the growing catalyst of a future treason on power and control in the Disney company. For now, I'll go over the first steps of this subsection and a small digital interruption in between. In 2008, both Maleficent and Grimhilda were taking the starting points of Neo-Disney, but they had no idea what would be the most effective way to start. They had to make their presence subtly known before making any executive choices. So the section became a minor producer for the 2009 film The Princess and the Frog. To me, I see this movie as the swan song to the classic princess movies Enchanted tried to invoke. And the movie did decent at the box office, but Disney wasn't convinced. A lot of people say that the film bombed because it had a girlish name, which, no. Snow White had a girlish name, and that movie is an instant classic. Little Mermaid had a girlish name, and that jump-started the Disney Renaissance. Beauty and the Beast had a girlish name, and that movie was nominated for an Oscar. So, no, Princess and the Frog did not stumble because of that. It was because a movie called Avatar was also in theaters. Kind of ironic that Disney owns that film now. But for our two main characters, they didn't get anything working out of this film. If they wanted to take over Disney, their projects needed to be bold and loud, something that will draw everyone's attention. But you know there was another major change Disney initiated in 2009. As mentioned several times before, Mickey was looking for a way to get rid of Saban by hiring new workers to replace his purchased employees. More importantly, he wanted to kill the president of the group, Chirkina, and her close associates from Digimon. But he couldn't do it publicly. Instead, he hired someone from the Jetix division that was eager to kill her, that being She-Hulk. And I already went over her motivations in another video, but what you really need to know is that Jen wanted Chirkina dead since 1999, since she became the new president of Fox Kids, and Jen didn't like that and wanted to kill her in order to achieve her goal of being number one. It should be noted that on that day Jetix became Disney XD, February 13th, 2009, Mickey invited Jen over for breakfast to discuss the plan for that night. She was free to kill any Jetix employees, however, she was ordered not to kill anyone from Marvel. Mickey had seen Marvel as the only bright spot and was planning on buying the whole company later that year. It would look bad if Jen went after one of her own just a few months before the acquisition. On that night, Disney kicked out all of their Jetix and Saban employees out of their offices except for Marvel.
Except you stay.
This game sucks my spider balls!
But he kept Chirkina around just for her to suffer. One of the reasons why he bought Saban back in 2002 was because of Disney's contemporary yet strongest employees around this time were Pepper Ann and the Weekenders. Mickey definitely needed more confident and powerful people on his side. And with Marvel, he was going to permanently own even stronger people, including one of the most powerful Astral Souls in all of Shareverse. Plus, Warner Brothers had owned DC Comics for a while now, and nobody really complains about that. So Disney decided to grab a hold of Marvel before any of the movie companies from the Viacom alignment got there first. With all that said, Chirkina did try to axe Mickey off the following year, but was officially fired and permanently cutting all ties with Disney and Saban in 2010. Now getting back to Neo-Disney, they were focused on striking while the iron was hot, since they didn't have that much involvement with Princess and the Frog due to entering late in its production. Though they were the only two employees of this division, and almost everyone they knew was either dead or no clue their section existed. Their first decision was pretty diabolical: go after victims that were affected by the genocide, and one name caught their attention: Alice. Despite what Kingdom Hearts 1 wants you to believe, Alice was not a princess, and therefore was spared from Nerissa's killings. However, she did suffer traumatically from losing her friends, and in response, she aged herself up and became an introvert, trying to repress all those years together. Maleficent and Grimhilda saw this as an opening and asked her if she would like to do a movie discussing her past grief, and she replied yes. So, in 2010, we got Alice in Wonderland. And you know what really grinds my gears? People calling this film a remake and not a sequel, despite several times the movie explicitly states this is a sequel to the 1951 feature. Get it right. So, the movie did okay. Wait, no, it made a fuck ton of money. Seriously, what the fuck is wrong with you people? You're one to talk, you also saw the movie. Oh, shut the hell up. The only reason why I saw that movie was because there was a huge power outage that made me lose power for my house the entire night. So my family decided to go see the movie because there was nothing else better to do. Anyway, for Neo-Disney.
Now what?
keep making these live-action adaptations or try to make an animated movie with no one close involved. But since both women had experiences with adaptations, they knew their way around it. They went to Europe and asked Rapunzel if she would like to be in a Disney movie, and she jumped with joy. Within a week, they got their main players, except for one. They needed a villain. There wasn't any good or noteworthy villains from the fairy tale that could adapt well into the film. Then they remembered something. They technically have the option to create a villain. The cloning chambers for Enchanted weren't entirely destroyed. This could be a great moment to use it again to create a memorable villain for the Disney Rapunzel movie, now called Tangled. Grimhilda volunteered to use her DNA to create this clone, and out popped out Gothel. Tangled comes out and becomes a success. Even though it was still labeled as a original Disney film, Neo Disney did gain a decent portion of the money, only increasing their production. 2011 was a quiet year for them, however. They spent most of it trying to plan out what kinds of newer films and or live-action adaptations could grow well for the division. They heard the news that the following year, 2 non-coincidental Snow White live-action films were in production. Grimhilda thought that this would be a good idea to send clones of herself to these films, while Maleficent was focusing more on creating a single yet powerful clone. These clones being Clementiana for the 20th Century Fox film Mirror Mirror, and Ravana for the Universal film Snow White and the Huntsman. While both films flopped critically and financially, both clones returned with a large sum of money for Neo Disney. Maybe now would be a good time to make another animated feature? However, there was a dilemma. Make another fairy tale adaptation and follow the same fate as original Disney, or branch out into something new and let fate steer the company? And if so, what kind of adaptation? How about video games? Both women did appear in Kingdom Hearts, Maleficent being one of the main antagonists, until her importance became more and more irrelevant, to the point where she was completely pointless in Kingdom Hearts 3. But since this was Disney's first official take on the genre, maybe it could work. Of course, that would mean that they would have to create their own original characters through the cloning machine, but not based off of anyone too much to avoid either another Narissa situation or a lawsuit by Nintendo. And so, Wreck-It Ralph came out in late 2012 and was a critical success, being Neo Disney's first official product in their library. But you know that there was another major change Disney initiated in 2012. I don't know where the decision for Lucasfilm to be acquired by Disney came from. Maybe George wanted to keep his series in protective hands, the same way Jim did with the Muppets after they passed away. But regardless, it was a confused yet optimistic time for Star Wars fans, myself included, hoping that whatever the mouse produces would be serviceable content for years to come. And for the most part, I think they're doing a pretty good job. No, idiots, they're not ruining Star Wars. But for Astro Souls, something else major happened in the early hours of October 30th. Mickey was not too ecstatic on having employees from a galaxy far, far away. I mean, technically they were working for him before the acquisition, but he definitely was not in the right mindset when he heard that a former employee of Disney kicked his ass in the middle of the night and claimed half of his company within 10 minutes, and Mickey couldn't do shit about it. If he wanted to fire her, it would have to be a 2-factor authentication with him and Gatomod. So she was in it for the long run. By the way, I know people are yelling at me saying, why are you calling her Laylamon and not the superior Japanese name Lilithmon? Okay, first off, Digimon partners from the anime around this time in Shareverse decided to utilize human forms so things got easier for them. And second, it makes Kari's Gatomon a bit easier to differentiate herself from the 4 or 5 Lilithmons in the digital world. And for her reasoning why she attacked Mickey, I brought that up in the finale to my Digimon seasonal reviews, which, by the way, please, oh god, please, watch these videos in the exact playlist order. I put all these videos in that order for a specific reason. It really annoys me every time people are telling me, AJ, what's Shareverse? Why did you make Digimon Fusion be the first video? It's for a reason. Watch it in playlist order, please. It's so easier for me, and it's easier for you to understand. Long story short, since she was the beating heart of the digital world due to the Digi-Crystal inside of her, she needed to assert her dominance to others. Case in point, kick the crap out of Mickey. However, there were some limitations to this new rule and power, such as Laylamon couldn't freely hire properties that were outside the company's reach. So, Digimon coming back to Disney was impossible. Regardless, she was able to get back at Mickey for ruining her job. The cat was able to snatch its mouse. But it also meant that a wrench was thrown into Neo Disney's plans. Because this change was so sudden, now Grimhilda and Maleficent had to deal with another obstacle. One logical yet highly risky move was to get rid of the Digimon. Two problems. Digimon are extremely powerful, and number two, they can't really die unless their data is deleted, which there has a scarce amount of methods. Thanks, Ray. They thought of confronting at least one of them. Maleficent had fought them back in 2000 in a Fox Kids special story arc. However, Grimhilda considered picking out a random Digimon to go after, and she chose Shoutmon for definitely no reason in particular. Though in order to keep the division's identity a secret, she used her clones to torment him, one with Clementiana in 2013, and another in 2014 with Ravana, just to make the confusion even complicated. And speaking of Disney in 2013, let's address the snowman in the room. I'm not going to pretend that Disney tried to make an adaptation of the Hans Christian Andersen story The Snow Queen for nearly 70 years. Honestly, it kind of made the most sense for Neo-Disney to take a crack at the tale. And they decided the main reason why the project never took off was because in the past, they wanted to use the original Astro Souls. And I'm pretty sure that the Snow Queen, who was permanently dead at this point, was also a sex offender. That would not fly at all on Disney. Well, Neo-Disney's idea was to do what they did best, make clones. They heavily altered the story to where the film was about a girl named Anna confronting the titular Snow Queen. Somewhere down the line, they decided to make these two sisters, so their coding was pretty much copied over, now with the queen being called Elsa. Somewhere else down the line, Elsa's design changed and her redesign was largely inspired by Rosalina from Mario, and she wasn't even aware of the news. But the production to this adaptation, now called Frozen, was pretty smooth. Both women felt confident that the film would be a success. There was no doubts about their magnum opus until literally hours before the red carpet premiere. You see, Frozen didn't have a villain. Now, Elsa did fill in the requirements of a villain role, but she was redeemed in the end where she married Kristoff, and Anna gets to marry her dream partner Hans. Maleficent and Grimhilda thought no little girl was going to look up to Elsa, the villain for majority of the runtime. So they rushed back to the story generator that creates the plots and settings for the cloned/created characters, and rushed out a new ending. Hans, the guy who never did a bad thing in the whole film, and frees Anna from her curse, he's now the villain and wants to kill Elsa, despite the fact that he had an opportunity earlier in the film. And for Anna's true love, make her a sister! Elsa fucks her sister! We have incest, people! Peak Disney screenwriting, 10 out of 10 masterpiece! And they shipped it! They shipped it out immediately! That was the cut shown during the red carpet premiere. But nobody cared about the late-minute, rushed twist villain. Nobody cared that our main character has a romantic relationship to her own blood. What sold Frozen was the music and Olaf. And if you want my opinion, what kept Frozen down for me was the music, an inferior story compared to The Lion King, Hans's nonsensical twist, and of course, Elsa being a poorly written character. Everything else is serviceable. In fact, I would like to believe that Elsa being a horrible person was thanks to the last-minute rewrites. The movie wants you to side with all of Elsa's decisions now that she's definitively a good guy. Yeah, good luck with that when we get to Frozen 2. Neo-Disney had their success. They got so much money from Frozen, they could easily overthrow Mickey right away. But again, Laylamon's in the way, how are you going to get rid of her? Well, by the spring of 2014, Maleficent was ready to unleash her clone alongside a movie about her. So you think with more time developing her, Maleficent's clone would be just as strong, if not more powerful than this clone is garbage. A complete chicken when it comes to fighting, has her pet crow do all the heavy lifting, she doesn't even turn into a dragon. And she has a romantic interest towards the equally boring Aurora clone. Oh wait, I'm sorry, in the 2019 sequel, she considers her as her daughter. You know, I'm starting to see a trend here. Maybe Dan Harmon was a writer for Neo-Disney. They were going to send this clone to Laylamon as a distraction while they forced Mickey to submit to their doings. However, one aspect they failed to realize was Nerissa was still alive and surprised Laylamon by helping her out. Turns out, before Gaudamon left Disney in 2009, she briefly visited Nerissa at her Hollywood Towers apartment, and told her that one day she would come back and put Mickey in his place. And 5 years later, they teamed up to take down the clone, though both of them believed that they were fighting the real Maleficent. There was no contest. Even with the backup plan of using the dragon animatronic from Fantasmic, the dragons overcame her. Both founders of Neo-Disney were distraught. Conquering Disney seems like a fantasy. And then something happened. Next time, I will be specifically covering the most important arc of the storyline, Night of Neo-Disney. This is where everything changes, and I don't want to spoil it. For now, if you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing. Until then, I'm AJ, and if I may, I would like to go back to the discussion of Disney ruined Star Wars, because they clearly didn't. I have no doubt that they didn't have a plan for the sequel trilogy, and that's why those movies have a negative deception towards fans, myself included. But I have no doubt that Disney does have a plan going forward with their Disney Plus shows. In fact, I think the shows are pretty decent outside of The Mandalorian. Book of Boba Fett made me appreciate a character I had no interest for because he had 5 lines of dialogue in the original trilogy, and Kenobi was a fun romp. Hell, Reva was the best part of the show because we never seen a character archetype like hers in Star Wars before. Oh, but AJ, Reva's character was similar and done better by this one character in a book from 1995. Okay, well that's like 2% of Star Wars fans that read that book, and that's being generous. They're not going to notice or care if character arcs are the same. Hell, these shows are doing the exact same thing the Clone Wars did for the prequels by filling in context and plot holes to those films. And I'm not even a Disney shill. I could care less about the MCU. I haven't even watched Andor because I never saw Rogue One. Why would I care about a show when I haven't watched its pre-existing film? And it only irks me more whenever I go to my YouTube homepage and I see a video titled, "The MCU is ruining Marvel and Kathleen Kennedy needs to be fired." Like, I don't care about these videos and their false claims about boycotting Disney because they still talk and watch them. They just make these videos to grift for views and money, and that's pretty scummy. Fuck these people, and with that I'm AJ, I'll see you on the next one.